Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155 from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championship, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are doing well for yourself. Things have been getting really dark, not just like in the States, even though they have been lately for the past month, but in the world of mixed martial arts, the father of Khabib Nurmagomedov has recently passed away. It's been made official. He passed away just five days ago. I was thinking about talking about Khabib's father's passing just 2 days ago at the time of this recording for the podcast, but I really wasn't sure. I was getting different information from different sides. It was known as a rumor at the time, but now it is official. There's a video footage of his funeral out there. It's incredibly sad, very powerful, really, and hopefully everything can go well for Khabib. Khabib's father meant so much to Khabib. He meant a lot to him. And so I saw a random video on YouTube that popped up. It was just yesterday. There was a video that popped up where Khabib Nurmagomedov was talking about, I say like his fight with Dustin Poirier. He's talking about his upcoming fight with Dustin Poirier. And he was in such a good mood. He was in a really good mood. He was talking about, hey, I'm going to win this fight. And, oh, by the way, I love my dad. I love my father. My father is a great, amazing person. And you hear this one woman. This one woman is telling Khabib, hey, I have a question about the fight. I have a question about the fights. And then Khabib, for about 2 straight minutes, is like, don't ask me a question about fights. Ask me a question about my dad. I love my dad. I love my father. My father is an amazing, amazing person. Ain't he great? He's awesome. And he's actually showing like a lot of optimism and positivity, which is something you rarely see off the UFC. It led me to like a rabbit hole of watching like, a whole bunch of AKA videos on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go watch like AKA videos on YouTube. You'll see fighters like Khabib, Daniel Cormier, even Luke Rockhold being how awkward as he is. You get to see like these fighters. And here's the thing, all the people there at AKA, they genuinely love Khabib. And when Khabib is there, it's like, okay, so can you imagine, for those of you who don't relate to it, okay, imagine going to school. You're going to school, and you're about to go to your favorite class. Your favorite class has all your friends there, has your favorite teacher. Like, you don't go to this class in your time of school being like, oh man, I hate like history class, or I hate math class, I hate algebra class. Why am I going here? Urgh. You also see some fighters who go to the gym with like being ultra serious, being like, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to train all on my own. It's like John Jones specifically does this the worst, where he goes in stoic and he leaves there stoic. But at AKA, you can see Khabib. Once he gets inside, he has this big smile on his face. He's like, hey, what's going on? Hey, and the really cool thing about this, and people were mentioning in the comments, and that everyone at AKA purposely changed their dialect and their language whenever Khabib is around. And what I mean by that, though, is that there was one fighter that says, hey, Khabib, cut hair. Instead of saying, hey, Khabib, can you cut your hair so you can look good? The man says, hey, Khabib, cut hair, look good. And everyone does this. Everyone is doing this around Khabib, and Khabib is like really happy about it. It's like very jovial. I love the fact that everyone adjusts themselves to the presence of Khabib. They all start changing their dialect. They all start saying brother a lot of times. People are smiling more often. And I'm happy that Khabib, being an immigrant myself, being a foreigner and immigrant coming to America, and having like immigrant and foreigner friends coming to America, it's very difficult. It's very difficult trying to like appease and appeal and trying to make friends in this foreign country. I was born in Abu Dhabi. After I went from Abu Dhabi to Philippines, then to New York, then to the West Coast, which now I reside here in Southern California for over a decade now, and it's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful here, and I wouldn't be who I am today if I wasn't surrounded by the right people. And when you look at AKA, it's a family. Khabib Nurmagomedov has developed a family at AKA with like Cormier, with Luke Rockhold, with his coaches, with his manager. It's a great relationship, and so to see like Khabib like looking at all these videos on YouTube where he's like, "Oh man, I love AKA, I love America, it's so great here, isn't it awesome?" And everyone's laughing, everyone's being jovial, everyone giving like he seems a lot more happy like when he's around his AKA people than as opposed to like his Dagestan team. When he's with his Dagestan wrestling team, he's like ultra serious, like no fun, like no music. It's just like all grappling, like 100%, like work hard every single day, 24 hours. And then you see him in America and AKA, and he's like smiling, he's being jovial, like he's sharing like images and his phone. People are sharing like weird stuff about him on like Instagram and Facebook, and he's laughing and he's giving these like really like strange facials where it's like, oh my gosh, like people here are so like weird. America's so weird. Wow. He looks like a kid going to a candy store. So to see Khabib at the funeral, where he's like incredibly upset, his head is always down, his face is just a complete frown the entire video. It's very difficult to get through. Daniel Cormier and Errol Hawani and I think it's at ESPN also, they did like a special tribute video for Khabib's father, and Daniel Cormier told a story. If you guys haven't checked yet, you should go look at it. Daniel Cormier told a story when he met Khabib's father for the first time. And when he met his father for the first time, Khabib's father starts grappling with Daniel Cormier. And Cormier's just like laughing it off though. He's like, "Oh my god, look at him, he's grappling me, isn't that really cute?" And then Khabib starts laughing at him. He's like, "Oh no, you gotta take him seriously actually." And Cormier's like, "Wait, what?" And then Cormier proceeds to actually grapple with his father, trying really hard and actually going back at it. It's not a jovial, fun play fight grappling. It's like legit, okay, I actually gotta really grapple and try really hard here. Okay, then Daniel Cormier talked about that, and it's like he's talking about how much of a good person Khabib has been as a father, as a husband, and as just a good overall friend. So my heart goes out to Khabib and his family. Hopefully things can go well. And when I first saw the video and saw the news about what's happening with Khabib, I immediately thought of the video where Khabib was doing a speech. Not necessarily a speech, but he was like doing a talk at what has to be an elementary school. Like he has all these kids, no more than like 9 years old. I swear, it's like this entire auditorium full of 9-year-old, 8-year-old kids, and they have their parents there. And one kid, it's cute. The kids, these like 9, 8-year-old, 7-year-old kids, they're all doing Q&A questions for Khabib. And Khabib looks like so astounded after every question, because these are questions that's like, it's really cute how the kids say it. The kids say, "Hey Khabib, you beat up Conor, how does it feel?" And like it's this little kid talking about it, and like Khabib has to laugh at himself or smirk at himself when he hears it. But there was one question a kid gave him that really made Khabib question himself more than anyone else. Like I've never seen a journalist ever do this, or a grown adult ever do this, where they asked Khabib a question, and Khabib genuinely was really confused about it. And the one question, it's not because the kid asking him was like 5 years old, because the kid asked Khabib, "Hey Khabib, what do you plan to do after fighting?" And then Khabib, like his eyes opened up and it was like, "Well," then he starts going, "What do I plan to do after fighting?" Like he's looking left, he's looking right. He just doesn't know how to exactly respond to that, and he thinks of, back at home, I'm planting flowers. That's fun. And then everyone in the auditorium, they all recognize that Khabib really has no plans outside of fighting. And they're like, "Yeah, Khabib, woo, good job, man, you're planning stuff, you're planning, yeah, flowers, woo." And then Khabib is like, "Yep, that's what's going on in my life. I'm planting flowers. Yeah, it's good. It's okay, next question, please." Like, Khabib was so awestruck of this little kid asking him, "Hey, what do you plan to do after fighting?" He had this very confusing response. And, in the past 2 years, you've always heard Khabib talk about his retirement. Even though he's in his early 30s. Yeah, he's only in his early 30s. He's like 31, 32 right now. And he's already contemplating retirement because he's been doing this for such a long time right now. And he always asks his father for advice for everything. And when you look at Khabib's career right now, what else does he have left to do to prove? Get the title belts just one division above him? Is he really interested in that? Someone asked him at a press conference, "Hey, are you interested in competing at a larger division, like welterweights, or welterweight or middleweight?" And Khabib's response was, "Honestly, I'm not really interested in getting a second belt. I have this belt already. I'll defend this belt. I might retire with this belt. I'm really not interested. I might go up one weight class, maybe." Really huge maybe there. I might fight one weight class, but I don't feel it. I'm really not interested. So Khabib's not really interested in fighting one more weight class. He's pretty much, depending on what happens with him and Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, I really believe Khabib has about 3 fights left in his career. I really believe that. I believe that when he's he's got that Tony Ferguson fight, which has to happen at some point, right? Justin Gaethje, I don't see Khabib fighting against Conor McGregor. I just don't reasonably see that. So right now, I don't know what's going on with Khabib. I really don't know what's going to happen for Khabib. I think after these next 3 fights, he will retire, win or lose. If you lose, he's definitely retiring. And then he's going to figure out his life. He's still a really young person. Think about this. Khabib Nurmagomedov, he is a foreigner coming to America. He's a superstar attraction whose career has been built off the premise of trying to impress his father and trying to be good at his father. And now his father is gone. And Khabib pretty much is at his peak right now in his career. And Khabib is feeling disinterested right now in his own career. He's saying, yeah, I kind of feel like retiring, honestly. Clean out the division. I don't know what's really next. And from the recent question he gave to the recent answer he gave from the question to the kid, where someone asked him, hey, what do you plan to do after fighting? Even he himself really doesn't know. So the future of Khabib right now is very confusing. I'm pretty sure, if his father was there right next to him, because he wasn't with his father. He was just asking, from the heart. I'm pretty sure he would ask his own dad, hey, what do I do next? I don't know. Maybe he could, be just a trainer, just be a coach. He's very passionate about training people. I saw recent videos of his Dagestan team. He's very passionate about training fighters, about pushing other fighters, pushing the next generation. He's always talked about he's always been talking about future fighters from his own camp or from his own country, and he wants to push them to succeed. Meanwhile, while talking about his own retirement. So maybe that's the future of Khabib. Hopefully things go well for Khabib Nurmagomedov, and, I'm sorry for his father's passing. I really am. It's very tragic how it happened, because up to this point, especially from Dana White, I always bag on Dana White, but I also praise him at the same time. But it's so weird that Dana White's always like, hey man, this coronavirus stuff, man, it's overblown. People need to stop panicking. People need to stop acting like cowards and just step outside. He's like, people who are hiding from the coronavirus, hey man, they're just all cowards. And then Khabib's father dies. I wonder, I'm just thinking, what would Dana White respond to? Can you imagine if Khabib were to come up to Dana White and says, hey Dana, tell me right now, am I a coward? Is me and my father, or we cowards for trying to hide and for distancing ourselves? And then Dana White would shut up. He wouldn't really say anything, because people have to recognize here, Dana White, the way he presents himself, to his fighters, to the media, to fans, very different. There's very different sides to Dana White. And I think if Dana White were to have a conversation, upfront, one-on-one, personal conversation with, the Jorge Masvidal, because apparently Jorge Masvidal and Dana White, they rarely even talk at all. They just talk, management talks to them. So I think if Dana White were to talk to, a Conor, or to, or a Jorge Masvidal, or a Khabib Nurmagomedov on their contract issues, or what, their viewpoints are, whether it be politically, or as it pertains to the coronavirus, I'm pretty sure they would all give him, different responses. And Dana White would come across as less of a curmudgeon, how he normally does. And he'll be like, yeah, I understand you, man, I really understand you. I don't know what's next for Khabib's headspace. I really don't, because he is expected to come back in 2 months. That's the prediction. Khabib Nurmagomedov several months ago says, I'm ready to come back by September. And then when his father was in a coma, he says, okay, my father, he's going to come back from this. He's going to do all right, and he's going to train me, and I'll come back either late August or early September. That's how confident Khabib was. Khabib talked about it in an interview where he says, I am so confident that God is in my father's side, and he's going to come back right up. Coronavirus is gone. My father's going to be all healthy soon. I am ready to fight Justin Gaethje in just 2 months from now. And then this happened. So, I don't know what the status is for Khabib. We've seen great fighters all the time. The passing of a family member, I'm talking like Rose Namajunas specifically, a passing of a family member really like changes like their viewpoint and also like their viewpoint on fighting and on life. And that event kind of prevents them from pursuing a career in fighting. So I don't know what's up with Khabib. He might come back September. He might come back August. He might come back next year. I don't know. So you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Come back right after the short break here with some more MMA news. See you around.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
We are back. So I just talked about Khabib Nurmagomedov's father passing. It was made official that his father did pass away, which is really sad because Khabib talked about it in a recent interview that he really believed that his father's coronavirus was gone. That it was gone. Apparently, it went into remission. It went to remission. It took him and the fight world and everybody in surprise. So I'm sad about that. Really. Hopefully Khabib can get back into fighting shape for September. If he doesn't want to fight, then it's understandable. If he wants to take a break from mixed martial arts, it's really understandable. If anyone who's been following Khabib Nurmagomedov's career, he loves his father. I don't know a single celebrity who loves their dad like Khabib. So hopefully things can go well for Khabib. But while the coronavirus has been damaging for Khabib's friends and family, because not just his dad, but he has had friends and family members who's also passed away as a result of the coronavirus. Mike Brown, the coach of Jorge Masvidal, he's been tested positive. So it is coming in from MMAJockey.com with the headline being Heartbreak for Jorge Masvidal. Mike Brown after coach's positive COVID-19 test. Jorge Masvidal won't have American top team coach Mike Brown at his corner for the biggest fight of his career, and he's feeling down about it. Jorge Masvidal, who's 35-13 in his MMA career, 12-6 in the UFC, is stepping in on just 6 days' notice to challenge welterweight champion Kumaru Usman this Saturday at UFC 251. So, in a recent footage, it is shown that Jorge Masvidal is at Fight Island. He is there. He's fighting him at UFC 251 this upcoming Saturday, and his head coach won't be there after Brown tested positive for COVID-19 while in Las Vegas. As a result, he was unable to board the charter flight to Abu Dhabi and will miss UFC 251. Jorge Masvidal, meanwhile, passed his COVID-19 test, congratulations for him, and departed for Abu Dhabi on a private jet. Courtesy of first-round management team, Brown's absence is a tough loss for Masvidal, who would have wanted nothing more than one of the most influential people in his career by his side for his UFC title shot. It sucked emotionally just because I want him there, Masvidal told ESPN. When I get that belt, I need this individual to be there because he's a huge part of my career. He's been there for such a long time. We've been friends for a long time as well. It was just like it took the air from all of us. Every single one of me and my cornermen were devastated by it. But thank God that Mike has no symptoms. Nothing. Brown's reaction was equally emotional in a statement provided to ESPN, expressing his heartbreak and not being able to see if Masvidal's hard work pays off. Just heartbroken. I'm not going to see Jorge win the World Championship in person, Brown said. Nobody deserves it more than this guy. Nobody has paid their dues more than him. Jorge is also one of the most thoughtful athletes I've ever met. He makes everyone feel they are with him and a huge part of the journey. The truth is, this guy has been honing his skills for more than 20 years and developed one of the highest fight IQs in the sport that the sport has ever seen. As far as being COVID positive, I feel good. The only pain I feel is in my heart. Jorge Masvidal received the call to face Usman after Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID-19 last Friday, opening the door for Masvidal to step in. Masvidal passed his COVID-19 test on Monday and traveled to Abu Dhabi on a private jet courtesy of first-round management team. So once again, good job for the UFC for being able to catch this. The reason why UFC gets a whole lot of flack is the what-if scenario. Is that what if they didn't catch it? What if they didn't catch, Jacare Souza? What if they didn't catch Gilbert Burns? What if they didn't catch Mike Brown? Then it will be a complete PR disaster. And not only that, there's a ripple effect to it. Even though UFC really is a big fish in a small pond in the realm of combat sports, it's a big enough fish to be able to have rippling effects if things don't turn out well for them. Because as of right now, it's currently July 8th at the time of this recording, and the NBA is coming back in just 2 weeks' time. In just 2 weeks, the NBA is going to be coming back, and there was no way that the NBA would be coming back if they didn't know, the WWE and the UFC were able to go pull out shows in the Florida area. Because right now, the NBA, they're going to have events happening in Disney World. They're going to have Mickey Mouse there. And there's rumors going on that could also happen in Chicago. Strange. But there's a rippling effect if the UFC wasn't able to pull this off. So good thing for the UFC for being able to figure this out, though. Because if they weren't able to go catch this, then yikes, it would have been a complete disaster. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, one thing I will note though is that Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal apparently is good. He's gonna lose an accumulation of 22 pounds in 6 days. Which is actually insane. He's gonna shred 22 pounds in 6 days. Then again, I still remember for Chael Sonnen, for Chael Sonnen, I think it was with the Anderson Silva fight or John Jones fight. Probably the second Silva fight. So on the second Silva fight, Chael Sonnen was able to shed 20 pounds over 24 hours. I have no clue how the heck he did. He drank a bunch of water. I don't know, he drank 5 gallons of water or 7 gallons of water on one day, put himself on the hot bath, sweated like crazy for 20 hours straight. I have no clue he did that. But the fact Chael Sonnen was able to shed 20 pounds in just one day, absolute insanity. Same thing applies for Jorge Masvidal. If he is able to do this though, because it's not really official. If Jorge Masvidal is able to knock out 22 pounds in the next 6 days, good props on him right now. Because the biggest thing that bothers me more than anything else in the UFC, the number one thing I am 100% against. The one thing I'm bothered with the UFC is cash weight fights. I hate cash weight fights. I hate it when fighters are not being able to make weight. You know why? Because nothing happens. When I mean nothing happens, I mean the fight you participate in doesn't really mean anything. If you win or lose, nothing in the rankings changes. Nothing, not your perception to the audience might change actually, but you lose 30% of your fight purse, 30 to 50% of your fight purse. And so you're already fighting. UFC fighters are already underpaid as it is. And then win, lose, or draw, nothing in your rankings happens. So even if you're to knock out your opponent, you don't move any in the rankings. And the person who just got knocked out, they don't move any in the rankings, but they'll look just really bad, on paper, knowing that they just recently lost their fight. And so they're going to be stuck fighting against fighters who are in the lower end of the spectrum in the rankings. So in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't mean anything. There's a fighter like Jinyu Kim. So Jinyu Kim is a fighter in the women's lightweight division. She's had 3 great performances. 3 really good performances. She's won 2 fights at catch weights. She beat 2 really good fighters who are among the top 12 in the rankings of the lightweight division. But she's number 15th ranked right now, despite beating 2 fighters in the top 12. Why? Because she came in as a cash weight. So let's have our fingers crossed that this will indeed be a title fight. I hope that this will be a title fight. I know Kumaru Usman can make weight. I don't know if Jorge Masvidal will be able to make weight though, because it'll be sad. It'll be sad if on the fight scale, it's all right, Jorge Masvidal, Kumaru Usman, and then Masvidal is just 1.5 pounds over. This will be a cash weight fight. Title is on the line. Main event is a non-title fight. Hey, that's gonna... Now, I'm still gonna watch the fight, though. I'm still gonna watch it and be like, you know what? Yeah, Kumaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. This is gonna be a really fun fight. I'm still gonna watch it, but I'm gonna watch it knowing that, well, you know what? For as fun as this fight is, it doesn't really mean anything. So it gets kind of complicated. That. Meanwhile, you know, as it pertains to complications, Mike Perry just punches an old man. He allegedly struck 3 people. Mike Perry, he's definitely a character. I will definitely agree to that. He definitely is he's certainly a strange character. He's a strange character. He had no cornerman. He was all alone. He had an awkward corner talk with his girlfriend leading up to the fight. It was a very strange scenario. And man, you know what? Things are weird in 2020. Things are getting incredibly weird in the year 2020. But we go from a coach to a manager here, as being reported in by SBNation.com that Robert Whitaker's manager is arrested for allegedly defrauding another client out of $1.15 million. Yikes. After a lengthy court battle between celebrity manager Titus Day and Australian Idol winner and current The Voice Australia host Guy Sebastian, Day was arrested on charges that he misappropriated more than $1 million of Sebastian's earnings. Titus Day's celebrity and athlete management business has had a rough go of things for the past several years. The longtime manager of Australian reality TV star and singer-songwriter Guy Sebastian had a well-publicized split with his client back in 2017, with Sebastian accusing Day of walking away with hundreds of thousands of dollars in earnings belonging to the artist. A lengthy court case ensued, with Day likewise claiming that Sebastian in fact owed him a large amount of money in unpaid fees. However, when the two sides failed to reach a settlement in 2019, Sydney Morning Herald reported that Day was forced to liquidate the 6 Degrees management firm shortly afterward. Former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whitaker first started working with Day back in 2017, shortly after his bout with Jacare Ronald Souza. Following the 2019 liquidation of Six Figures Management, the Herald reports that Day's wife launched 2 talent agencies, Rival Sports Management and Media Talent Management. Rival Sports Management still represents Whitaker as one of their premier athletes, while also claiming representation of newly crowned UFC featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski, although it appears Volkanovski has moved on and is currently now being represented by AP Sports Management, as well as lightweight prospect Jim Crute. A 2018 interview with Range TV featuring both Whitaker and Day announced Day as Rob's manager and life coach. I think that it's easy to have a vision of a stereotype of a manager. Entourage, there's a lot of movies of things, Don King, and there's a lot of managers out there with big personalities that operate like that. Day said in the interview with Range TV, explaining his work with Whitaker at the time, that tell their clients what to do and that like the media and want to be on the spotlight. That's why they do it. That's like the glamour and the glitz and all of it. I've never been into that. People ask me, have I ever wanted to be a UFC fighter? Hell no. No, not in a million years. Have I ever wanted to be a rock star? No, I never want to be a rock star. I like working in the shadows. Nothing would be worse for me than people coming and asking for my photograph and signatures. I just wouldn't want it. I don't think the role of a manager is to tell their clients what to do or be in the spotlight. On July 2nd, Australian news site news.com.au posted a video of Day's arrest and delivery into police custody, reporting that Day has been charged with 61 accounts of dishonestly obtaining financial advantage by deception, totaling at $1.15 million of lost earnings for Guy Sebastian. The report also noted that Day has been granted bail following his arrest, however, would be surrendering his passports and was required to report to the police daily between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. He is to have no contact whatsoever under any circumstances with Mr. Guy Sebastian, except through our legal representative, the Waverley Court Magistrate Ross Hudson announced. News.com's reports from the case accused Day of receiving 24 payments on behalf of Sebastian for overseas royalties to his work. However, there's also alleged that only 5 of those payments have made it to the artist's accounts, with the other 19 supposedly withheld diverted by Day. All my income was controlled via Titus into a trust account, Guy Sebastian said in a statement released on his Instagram and account after the arrest, and after noticing some disparities in payments, I requested important financial information, and I was rightfully entitled, and upon doing so, our relationship began deteriorating. The magistrate overseeing the case warned that the fraud was likely not isolated to Day's handling of Sebastian's account, and that police strongly believe they are more highly profiled victims. Both Day and Robert Whitaker have declined to comment on the story to Bloody Elbow. However, a source close to the situation says that their professional and personal relationship remains strong. So Robert Whitaker is not working with somebody who is, accused of fraud. You know what? I'm going to say this right now, alright? The UFC, the WWE, there's a lot of corniness involved here. Alright then, even though we're dealing with like billion dollar organizations here, there's a lot of corniness to it. And when I say corniness, it just, when you read this stuff, and when you look into this stuff, it just gets kind of confusing. It's not straightforward. You think the world would be, people who got life down to a T, making a whole lot of money, live, very straightforward. Because one of the problems with life going on right now is that people are very complicated, and through these complications, it's incredibly difficult to live in the States. But in this case scenario, no, things are getting incredibly corny. The pro wrestling industry has this, the mixed martial arts industry has this. We got divas from one side, we got crooked businessmen the other side. We got people trying to stir up drama through social media. We got people stirring up drama over here, lying all the time, manipulating their way into getting money. It just, it gets really bothersome. Early today, there was a video that popped up where Elon Musk was talking to the richest guy in China, and I feel like Elon Musk right now. To which, it's hard for me to grasp what's going on. And I mean grasp, things should be linear, things should make sense, because when he was talking with the Chinese guy, richest man in China, Elon Musk always kept showing these faces where he's like, I can't believe this type of person exists, or I can't believe, the world has, this type of person. Because he's talking with this Chinese guy, and this Chinese guy's just bizarre. He's just, bizarre, but he's, more successful than Elon, and they're both in the same, place in life, but they made to that place in very different situations. It's bizarre. It really is. So you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So coming up this Saturday is UFC 251. And is coming in from SBNation.com that the Vegas odds are finally out, with the headline being UFC 251 odds, latest Vegas lines and betting guide for Usman versus Masvidal. Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates has become Fight Island, and its inaugural is chock full of quality action in UFC 251's ESPN Plus pay-per-view main event. Kumaru Usman faces last-minute replacement Jorge Masvidal in the second defense of his welterweight championship. I remember a discussion that Ariel Helwani had when talking about Jorge Masvidal replacing Gilbert Burns at ESPN through their YouTube, and he was talking about how because Jorge Masvidal is replacing Burns, it's a much more marketable fight. Fight Island is a lot more marketable with Jorge Masvidal versus Kumaru Usman. Ariel Helwani predicted that the sales for the pay-per-view buys would bump up by 500,000. 500,000. Amazing. But I don't really think it'll go by that much. Jorge Masvidal is a star, okay? He is a star. He was the star of 2019. He had one of the most, he was one of the most talked about athletes in the UFC. He was a journeyman for a long time. and then he's finally getting his way. And so him against Kumaru Usman, I am a lot more excited for this matchup. It will definitely bring in more eyes to the product. But I don't think 500,000. I say 300,000. But the betting odds are finally out here. So I talked about the betting odds 2 days ago. I was wondering how much really changed here. But also, the undercard is out. And what the heck? Look at this. So if you guys don't know what the undercard is, I'm announcing right now. We got Volkan Ozdemir coming in as the favorite at minus 160 against Jiri Prochazka. Muslim Sakalov against Eliseo Zaleska dos Santos. Salikov is coming as the favorite at minus 135. Makwan Amirkhani is coming as a favorite as minus 200 against Danny Henry. Leonardo dos Santos coming as a favorite with minus 175 against Roman Bogdanov. Marcin Tybura coming as a favorite at minus 115 against Maxim Grishin. Raulian Palvia coming as a favorite with minus 175 against Zalgav Zamlov. Carol Rosa coming as a favorite with minus 240 against Vanessa Mello. And Martin Day coming as a favorite at minus 170 against Davey Grant. So as we go looking down the card here, right, so I am in agreement with the betting odds here. I am surprised at all the people who are on my side, because usually when I look at the betting odds and predictions, I'm always like in the opposite end of this. But you know what, things are going my way here. So for the main event, we got Kumaru Usman coming in as the favorite, minus 275 on Jorge Masvidal. Alexander Volkanovski, minus 230 favorite against Max Holloway. Peter Yan, minus 225 versus Jose Aldo. Rose Namajunas, minus 210 against Jessica Andrade. That is very interesting. And then we have a really out there one. Not really out there. We have Amanda Ribas, minus 900 favorites. Amanda Ribas is minus 900 favorites on Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt plus 600. Now, put this out there, I agree with all of these predictions here. I say Kumaru Usman is going to defeat Jorge Masvidal. I'm going to say Alexander Volkanovski is going to defeat Max Holloway. I'm going to say Peter Yan defeats Jose Aldo. Rose Namajunas is going to beat Jessica Andrade. Actually, that's the biggest question mark fight in the entire card. And we have Amanda Ribas. She is definitely beating Paige Van Zandt. And I'll talk about each fight here right now. So, Kumaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. I always pick the safe bet here. I always choose a safe bet. Now, the safe bet didn't work with me last time for the Conor McGregor-Donald Cerrone fight. It didn't work out well, but it worked out well for the Dominic Cruz against Henry Cejudo fight. But it also worked with me with Fabricio Verdum versus Alexei Oleinik. A lot of people betted on Fabricio Verdum just stomping Alexei Oleinik. And then when you saw Fabricio Verdum in the octagon, I have never seen Verdum look as bad or as out of shape in that fight against Oleinik. And I predicted that Oleinik was going to defeat Verdum. So you know what? I made some money from that. Because Verdum's off he's off the substance. He's off it, and he's got ring rust in the heavyweight division. That is difficult. He looked so large. Verdum looked gigantic compared to Alexei Oleinik. So ring rust to me is a huge factor as to why I don't really choose you to go in. And in this scenario here, Jorge Masvidal, he's last minute. Then again, Tony Ferguson, I predicted Tony Ferguson defeating Justin Gaethje because Justin Gaethje had a lot less prep time, I believe, while Ferguson was constantly training, year round for Khabib Nurmagomedov. But for Usman versus Jorge Masvidal here, I'm looking at this right now. Kumaru Usman is a better mixed martial artist. Kumaru Usman is the better overall mixed martial artist compared to Jorge Masvidal. Because what's Jorge Masvidal really good at? He's good at defending a takedown, and he's a great striker. He's an absolute great striker. Him and Conor McGregor are pretty similar. That's why people are always dream matching Masvidal versus Conor. It's because stylistically, they're pretty much the same fighter. They're these two astoundingly high IQ strikers that have great takedown defense. But has Jorge Masvidal fought anybody as good as of a grappler as Kumaru Usman? No. Kumaru Usman out-wrestled and out-grappled one of the best ever in the welterweight division in Tyron Woodley. And Tyron Woodley had no answer. Kumaru Usman has pretty much stomped every single person he's ever faced in the wrestling game. And if Kumaru Usman really wanted to, he could have wrestled Colby Covington, but he didn't. Because, I don't know, Kumaru Usman's getting kind of, maybe he's really believing in his own hype as a striker. That's the only way Jorge Masvidal is going to win this. The only way Jorge Masvidal is going to defeat Kumaru Usman is if Usman is just over-reliant and overconfident in his striking ability. He's like, yo man, I just outstrike Colby Covington. I feel like I am good enough to outstrike with Jorge Masvidal. That's what I'm guessing right now. That's what's going on. Like overconfidence from Kumaru Usman's part is going to lead to Jorge Masvidal potentially knocking him out. Because I don't see at all Kumaru Usman to knocking out Masvidal. I don't see it. The end scenarios here is Kumaru Usman wrestles with Jorge Masvidal and pulls out a submission victory. I see Kumaru Usman wrestling with Jorge Masvidal and winning after 5 rounds with a decision. Or a third possibility here, I see Jorge Masvidal knocking out Kumaru Usman. That's how I see it. I think in a grind-out game, Kumaru Usman is going to defeat Jorge. I don't think Jorge can defeat Usman if it were to go by decision. If the fight were to go by decision, Kumaru Usman wins. That's how I see it. Or if the fight gets taken to the ground, Kumaru Usman wins. There's only one way Jorge can truly defeat Usman, almost like Jorge Masvidal just develops this godlike wrestling defense. And that's he has to go knock out Kumaru Usman. That's how I say so. A post went up recently where there's an interview coming up on Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal says it's going to be a quick knockout against Kumaru Usman. Which is, he's got confidence. He's got confidence knowing that he has the potential to go and knock out Kumaru Usman in just mere seconds. He's got confidence in himself. I won't be surprised if it happens. But right now, I'm always choosing the safe bet. Also, Jorge Masvidal, he has to knock out 22 pounds over 6 days. And also, his coach has gone there. He's going through jet lag. He's traveling right now. He's got a lot of training to do. He has to prep up his wrestling defense. Like, Jorge Masvidal's got a lot to work with. He's got a lot to work. It is easier to... Like, when it was announced as Gilbert Burns versus Kumaru Usman, I thought to myself, oh snap, this fight can go either way. I'm still going to choose Usman, but this fight can seriously go either way. Burns can potentially defeat Usman in both the wrestling and the striking. Jorge Masvidal, just the striking. So this is an easier matchup for Kumaru Usman, which is good for him. Usman can potentially make more money, he can become more famous, and he's going to be fighting an easier opponent. So good on him. Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. If you guys haven't seen Max Holloway's recent interview with Il Hawani, dude, Max Holloway, I just don't feel it. Have you guys ever played, like, pickup basketball ever? Or you played, just, you and your friends, you go to the gym, or you go to the park, and then you see, like, 5 other people, you see 5 other people on the court, you see them playing basketball, and then you're trying to split apart the teams. You go make it 5-on-5, your friends are in the line, you got the 2 team captains there, and you can tell just from the eye test on who sucks and who doesn't suck. It happens all the time. We're like, even though you've never seen this guy play basketball, you can tell by their body language that they're just not good at basketball. And that's how I feel about Max Holloway. I'm not saying that he's not good as a mixed martial artist. I say right now that he's not coming to the fight the same way Alexander Volkanovski is. I think Volkanovski is going to come to this fight, and he's going to smoke Max Holloway through 5 rounds of action. I say it's going to be. I say it's going to be very similar to their first fights, or Volkanovski just stomps Holloway for the entirety of the fight. I just don't see Holloway winning. I really don't. I'm surprised it's not minus 300 really for Volkanovski. Though I can be completely wrong. Holloway can be like the best he's ever been, but right now I just don't see Holloway. From his interview he had with Errol Hawani and Max Holloway, like going back to school and like learning how, like apparently he's like a second grade teacher now, teaching mathematics and English. Really good on him, dude. Really good on him. Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo ain't winning. He's just not winning this. I can guarantee you that. There's not a single aspect of the fight game that Jose Aldo is better at than Peter Yan. Now, if Jose Aldo were to defeat Peter Yan, it would be a complete upset. Huge, major upset right now. But I just don't see it. Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. So, Jessica Andrade, if you guys don't remember this fight, in their first fight of Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade was the favorite. She was the favorite in the matchup against Rose Namajunas, and the prediction was the analysts, the fight fans all said, "Oh, Jessica Andrade is going to defeat Rose Namajunas." Why? because Jessica Andrade is literally better at Rose Namajunas in every single aspect of the fight game. She's stronger, she's faster, she's bigger, she's better at the clinch, she's doing better at angling shots. She can go and press the action a lot more than Rose Namajunas. She's got a longer reach. She can grapple with you. There's nothing. If you just look at the physicals, if you just look at the eye tests, there was no way anyone would predict Rose Namajunas fighting as good as she did against Jessica Andrade. And then the actual fight happened, and Rose Namajunas pulled off what had to be the best first round I've ever seen in Rose's career. And Rose has had some great fights over her entire career, but Rose Namajunas completely destroyed Jessica Andrade in the first round. Masterclass striking there. Like, Rose Namajunas fought as perfect as she could against Andrade. So Andrade came in supposedly being the better fighter. Rose Namajunas pretty much defeats Jessica Andrade in the first round. And the only reason why Rose Namajunas lost was because she was setting herself up for a submission victory. Because in the first round, Rose Namajunas was about to pull off an armbar off Jessica Andrade slamming her. And so Rose Namajunas thought to herself in the second round, okay, I almost got a submission victory after she slammed me. So this time, I'm gonna, work on my body a little bit more. I'm I'd make some adjustments, and I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm gonna get slammed again, but this time, I'm not gonna let go of the submission. I'm gonna tap her out. And so she let herself be placed in a bad position where she would go be slammed, and then she got knocked out by the slam. That's the honest truth. It's less about Jessica Andrade being the better fighter, and more like Rose Namajunas making a huge mistake. So when I look at the rematch here, I don't know what the mental status is for Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas, just like Khabib, has had friends and family members who have passed away from the coronavirus. Rose Namajunas has been gone from the fight game for over a year. Rose, through interviews, she seems good. She seems happy. She seems very confident. Unlike Max Holloway, who both of them are going through a period of ring rust. Unlike Max, Rose looks like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I can definitely do this. I'm ready for this fight. I'm ready for this matchup here. I know what I made mistakes on. I'm not just a better fighter. I'm a better person in life. I feel like I really adulted and grew up. I'm ready to go fight Jessica Andrade. And I promise you, this is going to be a spectacular fight. That's what Rose said. She says she's going to have a spectacular performance against Jessica Andrade. Compared to Max Holloway, who's like, hey man, I'm tired. Mixed martial arts is very tiring. Ooh. Holly just looks really bad. And then we have Amanda Ribas versus Paige VanZant. Paige VanZant. Okay, she's gone through a multitude of injuries. She's gone through 2 years of ring rust. She's not fighting because she wants to place herself up in the rankings. It's because she wants to finish her contract. Like, that's Paige VanZant's main goal right now. Finish this fight so she's a free agent so she can renegotiate. And her past 5 fights have not been that impressive compared to Amanda Ribas, who I think in her time in the UFC has either had 1 loss or is undefeated. So right now, Ribas, the sky's the limit for her right now. I don't see Paige VanZant winning. There's a lot of things going against Paige right now. I just don't reasonably see seeing somebody as good as a prospect as Ribas losing to Paige. And so you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. That were the UFC Vegas lines. Prepare to watch UFC 251 this upcoming Saturday. And I'll see you after the short break here.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back. So once again, UFC 251 will be coming up this Saturday. You gotta wake up early morning to go watch it because you're in Abu Dhabi, America, different time zones. The show I gotta recheck this up again. It might start at 1 a.m. at a Saturday or at 1 a.m. on a Sunday, so I gotta check up on that. But right now, let's talk about pet peeves. Last week I was talking about MMA and UFC pet peeves. So I was like, what about the show kind of turns you off? And I'm asking about this because although the UFC mixed martial arts, it's serious. Combat sports is a very serious sport. but a lot of reasons as why we fight fans enjoy the sport is because of the most weirdest and wackiest reasons. Mixed martial arts is weird, okay? Like, one of the more popular videos in UFC history is Joe Rogan talking about how ice fell on the octagon. And his people thought it was the funniest thing ever. So it's, the world of mixed martial arts is incredibly weird here. And I found a forum here talking about what are the most, it's me reacting to what are the most, what are the biggest pet peeves or the most cringiest aspects of the UFC cards here. So I'm going to read these out. One pet peeve includes a gruesome injury occurring during the fight. And yes, that is a personal pet peeve of mine. Chael Sonnen versus John Jones. John Jones stomped Chael Sonnen. Without a doubt. Who was the better fighter that night? Who's been the better fighter? John Jones. If John Jones and Chael Sonnen were to fight each other 100 times, who would win? John Jones. But in the fight between Jones and Chael Sonnen, John Jones had a toe injury. And if the referee were to stop the fight, then Chael Sonnen would have won. Which is really bizarre about it. Are you really the winner of a fight if the guy injures himself? Because he wrecked his own toe after he attempted a takedown. So really, did Chael Sonnen really defeat? It's so bizarre. It's like if I were to fight somebody. If I were to fight somebody who had the flu, and then like the dude just fell over because he was incredibly sick and he just could barely move his arms and legs. Did I really win the fight? There's a huge asterisk to that, and I don't like it when injuries come up in the middle of a fight. It's, I know it's common sports, right? Injuries can happen anytime. The point of the fight is to go and hurt each other. But I don't like major injuries that could lead to a fight, just ending off anticlimactically. I just don't like that at all. A boring lay and pray. There are some interesting wrestlers, like Khabib Nurmagomedov, like Chael Sonnen. They're very interesting to watch. Kumaru Usman, in many occasions, can be incredibly boring to watch. Many occasions. A controversial decision. It was Dominic Cruz against John Jones. Dominic Cruz should have won. It's a personally honest, I dislike the fight game, in that we always hear it all the time from Dana White. Don't leave it ever to the judges. The judges are going to go screw you over. But yet, if a champion is fighting and they win through judge's decision, we're going to say, oh, he fought like a champion. It's ridiculous. Let me tell you, if you're a challenger, you're not supposed to end the fight by decision. But if you're a champion, that's all fine. Like, to fight like a champion means that you're able to tough it out and made it to the end where the judges decide who actually wins the fight. That is ridiculous. That a championship type fighter wins by decision, but a challenger should win through knockout. And if you try to win the fight by decision, then you're not fighting like a champion. It's so hypocritical how we look at it's ridiculous. It gets really incredible. Foul eye pokes. Eye pokes is ridiculous. I hate eye pokes. I hate groin strikes. They serve nothing other than to honestly, even if a fighter were to accidentally attempt an eye poke, groin strikes maybe, but for eye pokes, give them a negative point. Give them a negative point. Not only do you give them a negative point, have your opponent go and have extra time in their break. That's what I believe. It's only fair because it happens in every single fight, every single major card. In the main card, eye pokes always happen. And then what does the person who does the eye poke? Like, what do they? Because you have to attempt eye pokes like twice or 3 times just to get a point off. So essentially, a person doing the eye poke can do it like 2 more times free before they get penalized. It's ridiculous. You're not going to be penalized doing an eye poke or a groin strike if you don't attempt it over 2 times. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Got here, not one for pet peeves in MMA, but I usually enjoy every card in the fight, but I'm rarely watching as just a fan. I'm usually studying fighter styles and techniques and thinking about what I do against that fighter, or what his or her opponent should be doing, or what they should do. Probably fights where fighters are being sloppy and crashing into clinches with little technique are just hugging, gassed out. Basically, fights where neither guy is winning and are tired and sloppy fighting. I'm not talking like wars where you guys get gassed and they keep battling. Instead, it has become sloppy. So, Augusto Sakai versus Blagoy Ivanov. It's from a recent UFC pay-per-view event, or UFC card. That fight was boring. We had two heavyweights. We had two heavyweights. We got one guy who gassed out just a minute and a half in. We got a second guy who's not as gassed, but he has reach advantage through his jabs and through his kicks. So it just became basically one guy chasing after another dude, and from the eye test, you can tell the guy is so tired and so gassed out. He will never pull out the knockout punch. It's not like Derek Lewis. Like Derek Lewis, even when he's gassed out, he can knock you out with one punch. Same thing for Francis Ngannou. Even if he's gassed, he can knock you out. But there are a lot of heavyweight fights, not just heavyweight. There are like guys like the middleweights and the welterweight division who are perfectly fine just trading jabs. And that's just not fun. It's not fun. It's not interesting. I wouldn't call it enjoyable at all. So yeah, I'm a believer. I don't like sloppy fighting. I just really don't. I don't like it when two guys are clinching. Like, you could, if you've ever been to an actual, live event, or a boxing event ever, when the second people start clinching, that's when the fans tune out. I saw one boxing fight where literally every 4 seconds they would go clinch. There was a guy who had these incredibly long arms, and every time he would go for a right hook, he would gather his arm around his opponent's neck, and they would always start grappling. In a boxing match. It's ridiculous. It's boring. It's not enjoyable to watch. It's not even a skill. You're just literally taking advantage of your reach and just grappling the guy. You're not even properly trying to box them or trying to find angles. You're literally just hitting him, grapple him, just so you can buy time for yourself to rest up, and your opponent's also tired, so they're also trying to rest up also. So really, just things aren't going, but it's not fun. It's so not fun at all. Alright, another pet peeve here. We all know that, so there's a lot of weird sexist people here on these forums. It's very strange. And these forums I'm reading at, they're from 2018 to 2020. Still going on nowadays. 1. When the champion is fighting an interim champion, Buffer and all of UFC introduce him as the undisputed champion. There's an interim champion. How could a fighter be the undisputed champion if an interim champion exists? Yeah, you're right. There's literally no other way to dispute a championship belt in the UFC setup. If an interim champion exists, you're not the undisputed champion. Because now there's a championship dispute that's happening here. And that's the thing that UFC and mixed martial arts they generally do. The interim champion, just to go sell belts. But let's be perfectly frank here, but the terminology is thrown off there. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. If Buffer says, Khabib, he is the undisputed lightweight champion, fighting from the other quarter, he is the current interim lightweight champion. What? That's an oxymoron. You can't just say what. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't do that. You can't do it. It's ridiculous. That makes no sense. When a boring women's mixed martial arts fight happens, or a fight like John Dodson. Okay, so here's the problem that a lot of people have with the smaller fighters. It's not just the people focus on the women's mixed martial arts because they're small. But I understand the John Dodson issue, in that you have these small dudes who are very quick, very technical. But, the end result is not going to be a knockout. Very rarely, with the exception of guys... That's why people love Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt was this small guy who could knock people out. Dominic Cruz, he's one of the best ever. He's one of the best small fighters ever in mixed martial arts history. He's not known for knocking people out. He's known for winning fights. But he's not known for finishing people. And so it is a turnoff for a lot of people to not enjoy the smaller fighters. Is there a way to fix it? No, there really is no way to fix it. There really isn't. You just have to hope that the fighters you do... And there's a reason why people love Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley's a small dude, knockout artist. Conor McGregor, small dude, knockout artist. People are fine watching these smaller fighters. We just want to see action that involves two fighters who fight very differently, other than, look at these two very quick strikers here. Not fun. Oh, here's what people say. The seldom seen but often heard couple dozen of Ric Flair clones that have been trying to get to who have been trying to appear in the main event recently. Yes, a lot of people are attempting to be like Ric Flair, attempting to be like pro wrestlers. I absolutely hate it. You know why? Alexander Hernandez is the worst case scenario. Like, Chael Sonnen would come in here, he would argue, well, he's trying to put over his character. Okay. Characters, alright? What's your character? Now tell me this. Is your character different from that character over there? Tell me, what's the difference between a Ben Askren and a Chael Sonnen? What's the difference between an Alexander Hernandez and a Conor McGregor? Kumaru Usman lately has been pretty much a cartoon character. So has Jorge Masvidal. Can we have people just talk naturally on the microphone and just be themselves? Now, Chael Sonnen and Ben Askren and Colby Covington all say, well, no one wants to hear that. They just want to hear... What do you mean no one wants to hear that? I'm going to stop right there. George St. Pierre. Chuck Liddell. Anderson Silva. Chael Sonnen talked so much trash during his time as a UFC fighter. But I can guarantee you, the John Jones of the world, the Anderson Silva of the world, the Chuck Liddell of the world, they don't talk even like a third of trash talking, yet they sold more money. They sold more buys. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be interesting, okay? I like seeing interesting fights. I like seeing character and stuff. But there's a huge... For Chael Sonnen, his character is that he thinks he's something that he's not. That's his character, okay? And when you have a bunch of other fighters like Kevin Lee who are trying to play a character and they're doing really bad at it, it's not fun to watch. It's cringy. It's incredibly cringy to watch. It's another thing that people need to seem to forget about trying to replicate or try to act like a pro wrestling character here. There are heels and there are baby faces. Alright? The goal of the heel, which is what Chael Sonnen, Ben Askren, Colby Covington, Kumaru Usman, you know, their character is that the heel is the bad guy. Muhammad Ali's the bad guy character. Alright then? That's the point of him. LeBron James kind of is a bad guy character, if you think about it. You got these bad guys, and then you got the good guy. And typically how pro wrestling storylines work, how narratives work in the UFC, even also in pro wrestling, is that there's a good guy and there's a bad guy. How annoying is it when you have two people who are trying to act like a bad guy? One, the appeals for Don Cerrone versus Alexander Hernandez. Like, Hernandez played his part perfectly, even if it's annoying. And that Don Cerrone was the obvious good guy. Alexander Hernandez was the obvious bad guy. Alright, that works. Now, Kumaru Usman versus Colby Covington. Well, you got one guy who kind of is a bad guy in Kumaru Usman, because he's like increasingly like talking like mad sass on like Twitter and social media, Instagram, and on interviews. And then you have Colby Covington, who just an even more... No, you can't be like, this guy's a level 8 bad guy, this guy's a level 10 bad guy. Let's have a storyline where you have two bad guys going at it. No! It's not interesting. No one wants to watch this at all. No one does it. Like, it astounds me that people are trying to replicate themselves into being just like pro wrestlers, but yet they themselves don't understand how narratives, how character work, how storylines work in pro wrestling. It's ridiculous. Bad guy A is not that different than bad guy C. If bad guy A and C are fighting against one another, who the heck is the good guy? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. People are bringing up like Ric Flair in the forums here. They're like, oh man, well, like, and people are trying to attempt catchphrases. Till right now, Chael Sonnen saying score 1 for the bad guy has to be one of the most cringiest things I ever hear. That's Razor Ramon's catchphrase and / Scott Hall's catchphrase. Like, how is he a bad guy? All because you tell yourself you're a bad guy and trying to act like a bad guy doesn't make you a real genuine bad guy. That's one issue that I had with Chael Sonnen during his time with the UFC, and that you're not a bad guy. You're playing a bad guy. And even then, the bad guy you're playing isn't even really a bad guy. What about... it's... I don't know, it's trying too hard. It's like late 90s, like, shock jockey. You're trying too hard to be a character that no one actually believes your character. And that's the annoying part. And so that brings us to a close for today's episode. Get ready for UFC 251 coming up this Saturday. And all I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.